Hi there, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of The Verdict. We have got some very interesting races to look back on from York's Ebor meeting last week. We'll be going there for 5 of the contests that I'm going to look back on, and then the Curragh on Saturday for a very good 2-year-old performance. But we start at York on Wednesday. On day 1, here are the winners on a day when the times were very fast. JM Jungle Understander, the Lion in Winter, what a performance that was. We'll have a look at him very shortly in the 2:25. Los Angeles winning the Voltager. City of Troy, of course, we'll have a look at him breaking the track record that was set by See the Stars. Extensio, a very emotional winner in the 4:10. Star of Lady M, very impressive in the 4:45. And indeed, yes, I'm Marley winning the last, all under the Racing Post standard those times. So let's have a look at the Race IQ time index and see what that says. These were the best times of the week. Maybe the Grand was fastest, most helpful for fast times on day 1. The average of 7.57 and good performances from the Lion in Winter. That's the second race you can see there. The Acomb over 7 furlongs. City of Troy, obviously, with his 9.47. And Star of Lady M put up a very good performance on the clock as well, suggesting that she is a pattern race performer now and could perform out of handicaps. But we start with that big performance at the top of the card. It is the Acomb Stakes, and it's won by the Lion in Winter from stall 3. Beats Wimbledon Hawkeye from 2 and Ruling Court from stall number 6. Early part of the race, Ryan Moore was very positive on the Lion in Winter. He was keen to go forward on him, and indeed he was the fastest to get to 20 miles an hour. It took him 2.49 seconds. Wimbledon Hawkeye, who finished second in the race, he was only 9th fastest at 2.79. That's important, bearing in mind that this is a speed track, and throughout the week, not many horses made up ground from off the pace, and that was certainly the case here. Ryan bowling along in front on the Lion in Winter, who's clearly a lot sharper than on his debut. He was a little bit tardy from the gates on his debut, where he finished his race off strongly, but he seemed to be a bit clueless on his first run, but he learnt an awful lot from that. Now, this was a race that was run at a pretty good tempo. The finishing speed percentage was 102.59. That's against a par of 99.49. So it was run at a pretty good pace, and Ryan Moore was always prominent. And his horse quickened up in good style in the closing stages. The 6th furlong, he went to 11.03, and the 7th, 11.69. That is rated as being fast through the final couple of furlongs, as against the Race IQ par. So he really has, having been prominent, having gone a good gallop, finished off very strongly. Here's Ruling Court trying to throw down a challenge towards the outside, but he couldn't get to the Lion in Winter, who's coming home just over 2% quicker than he ran the rest of the race, and in fact going away in the closing stages. Ruling Court, I think, hampered by this being a fast 7 furlongs. He'd won on debut at Sandown over 7, where he was strongest at the line up the hill. This all happened a bit too quick as far as he was concerned, but not too quick for the Lion in Winter. Those final 3 furlongs, 10.95, 11.03 and 11.6. His final 2 furlongs, much better than his nearest pursuers. This was a very good performance from him. His win time was 1:21.58, so he's over 2 seconds under the Race IQ par. And look how well strung out they are in the closing stages. This is a very good performance, just about the best 2-year-old performance that we have seen so far this season. I can compare his final 2 furlongs with Ruling Court, who looked like he'd come to win. 22.72 the winner, but 22.99 Ruling Court. He was second fastest through the last 2 furlongs, but not good enough to get to this very nice winner, who was just pushed out hands and heels in the closing stages by Ryan Moore. And, well, it looks like the National Stakes will be next up for him, but he's certainly the best 2-year-old we have seen so far this season. And this is a summary of what he achieved. You can see the finishing speed percentage on the right-hand side of your screen at just over 100, 102.59, a bit better than the par that you would expect. And there's the colour coding according to the Race IQ par sectionals, and you can see that the race was run a par time through the first couple of furlongs, steadied just a little bit, and then it was pretty quick through the final 3 furlongs. And look at his final 2 furlongs, rated as being fast, really strong through the line in winter, suggesting he'll stay a mile. His overall time was very good, but he's certainly got speed for 7. We stick with the action on Wednesday afternoon now and have a look at the great Voltager, which went to Los Angeles, who got the better of his stable companion Illinois, with King's Gambit back in 3rd spot. Let's take them from the stalls. The 0 to 20 mile an hour time's not particularly relevant here. Los Angeles was quickest, 2.70 seconds, so you can see that he's towards the 4 there, but they were all much for muchness, really, how they came out of the stalls. First Los Angeles, second Illinois, third King's Gambit. The early part of this contest was quite steadily run. The first 3 furlongs was not particularly quick. And you can see that Euphonic went forward in the early stages. He's a pacemaker for Los Angeles and Illinois. I think it's a pretty good performance from Los Angeles. He had a penalty, so he was giving weight away to the stable companion and indeed to the others. And he does this in good style. And I don't think necessarily the race was run to suit him because of this quite steady early gallop through the first 3 furlongs. He's clearly a strong stayer. He showed that when he won the Irish Derby, and to an extent showed it in the English Derby as well. He's got a big, long, raking stride, and he's going to be seen to good effect perhaps if he goes for the St Leger, although they're talking about the Irish champion, which surely will be too short for him, followed by a tilt at the Arc de Triomphe, which might suit him. A bit of cut in the ground at Longchamp in October might be right up his street. So they bowled along in single file through the early part of this race, and it was steady, which led to a little bit of a quick finish. The finishing speed percentage 105.39, so Los Angeles rated at 5.39% quicker in the final 3 furlongs than the rest of the race. And that tells us that perhaps he's just got a little bit more speed than he's given credit for. He can quicken, he can pick up, and he certainly did here. Now, this steady gallop that I refer to is about to change. They're about to pick up from this point on, just as they turn for home. They often get racing at York a long way out. It's a long home straight, and sometimes they get racing quite a long way out, and they certainly did in this case. This is where they started to pick up the speed. They went from an 11.91 to an 11.35, followed by an 11.23, and you can see there from the jockey's body language that fully 4 out, they're almost flat out. Furlong 8, 11.91. That's just rated as par as against the Race IQ sectionals. But he gets quicker from here on in, over towards the far side. That's an important point. There he is, he's getting quicker. 11.35 through furlong 9, and his fastest furlong is about to come now through the 10th furlong, when he goes 11.23, again rated as being par. He reached 40.02 miles an hour at this stage compared to Illinois, who was 39.13. So he's shown a bit of speed to get himself to the front without quickening wildly, but he does have that change of gear, and I think he would have been aided by a stronger early tempo here, which would have enabled his stamina to come into play, and he might have won by just a little bit further had that been the case. But nonetheless, I thought he was quite impressive, giving weight away to his rivals. His final 3 furlongs, 35.49, the runner-up 35.92, and the third 35.57. So whatever way you slice it, whether you look at individual final 3 furlongs or cumulative final 3 furlongs, he is better than his rivals. Be noted that King's Gambit came home reasonably well. Trying this trip for the first time, he hung to his left a little bit in the closing stages, but it was still a good effort from King's Gambit, who was stepping up in grade, and there might be a bit more to come from him at this sort of trip. His maximum stride length at Los Angeles, interesting, 7.91 metres. He's got a low cadence. He doesn't spin his wheels quickly. His cadence is 2.25 strides per second. So he's got a big, long, raking stride, and he's a really huge individual, isn't he? It's perhaps interesting to note that his long stride is nowhere near as long as City of Troyes, who's a much smaller horse, but we'll come to him in a moment. Here's what Los Angeles did throughout the race in terms of his individual sectionals. You can see in brackets what position he was in through the race, and you can see just where that tempo picked up. If you look in the first column, he go to 7 furlongs for 12.9, and then you go 11.91, 11.35, 11.23. That's when it really picked up quite a long way out. As soon as they turned for home, they started to turn on the gas And he's not short of speed, as that 10th furlong shows, 11.23 seconds. I think the Arc de Triomphe would be absolutely ideal for Los Angeles, who keeps answering all the questions that are posed to him. Time now on the verdict to have a look at the best performance of the meeting, that of City of Troy in the Juddmonte International. Surely the doubters have become believers after what he achieved here. Stall 5 he comes from, Calandigan from 7 and Ghostwriter from 13. Now I want to talk about what happened in the Eclipse compared to this. In the Eclipse he jumped slowly and Ryan Moore asked him to go forward, and in so doing he got really keen with Ryan. Here Ryan wasn't messing around. No, we're not going to go slowly and then try and get you to go forward. Let you go forward immediately, and look at that. He was quick out of the stalls this time, 2.41 seconds to 20 miles an hour, second fastest. In the Eclipse, fourth fastest, 3.22 seconds. And he got very keen with Ryan in the Eclipse thereafter on unsuitable soft ground. Now, what happened in this race? Well, Ryan's gone forward, he's cut across, he's ignored his pacemaker, who as ever was slowly away, and thereafter he's going to dominate this race. The first two calls in this race, the first two sectionals, rated as being par against the Race IQ sectionals, but then Ryan slows it down in the third and the fourth furlong. See Ambient Friendly getting keen in behind. There you go, furlong 4, 12.65. It's a very slow furlong from Ryan, saving energy on City of Troy out in front. He's a bit keen. Ryan can't get his hands down on the horse's withers, but Ryan's just taking a pull out of him. Look at his heels pointing down towards the ground. He's sitting hard against City of Troy, who wants to do more, but Ryan slowed him up through that third and that fourth furlong. And then, when he got into the home straight, he began to wind him up and use his long raking stride on this fast ground that suits him so well. And once he got into the home straight, he fired 5 sub-12-second furlongs on the bounce. Here we go, furlong 7, 11.29. Contrast that with the 12.65 when Ryan took a pull early on. Now he's winding the pace up, and he goes that 11.29 through the 7th furlong. And then he continues to fire sub-12-second furlongs through the rest of the race. Furlong 9, look at this, 11.19 seconds through that 9th furlong, and his 10th furlong's quick as well, 11.74. Both those final 2 furlongs rated as fast as against par, and he hit the line hard, and he took an age to pull up after crossing the line, and look how well strung out they are. A race for a Group 1 over 10 furlongs that had plenty of runners, but maybe not as much strength in depth as people led us to believe beforehand. A lot of runners, but not a lot of quality, although the first 2 are clearly top-class racehorses, and Ghostwriter good as well. He broke See the Stars' track record. Be careful with that. He ran 2 minutes 4.32. Why be careful? Well, conditions are different. Tempo of the race is different, so you can't really compare them as racehorses because of that. But nonetheless, it tells us that this was a really good time performance, 3.14 seconds under the Race IQ par. You've got to mention Calandigan. What a run from him. He too, like City of Troy, fired 5 sub-12-second furlongs, and he was quicker through 2 of the final 3 furlongs than City of Troy. City of Troy stronger than Calandigan in the last furlong, but that's because Calandigan had to make up ground from off the pace. He used quite a lot of speed to try and get to City of Troy, but he couldn't quite get there, and then City of Troy very strong through the final furlong. It begs the question, if Calandigan had been ridden closer to the pace, would he have laid down a much stronger challenge to City of Troy? My answer, no, because in being rated off the pace, he was able to save energy for a strong finish. You can see there, looking at the Race IQ par sectionals, that he finished fast Calandigan through the final 3 furlongs as against par. But he only could do that because he was able to save energy in the early part of the race, rated towards the rear of the field. If he'd raced closer up and used more energy in the earlier part of the race, City of Troy probably would have out-galloped him. And certainly through that final furlong, City of Troy was stronger than Calandigan. This is a brilliant racehorse, City of Troy. Whether he'll be able to flash what he did at York on the dirt at Delmar is a completely different question, for he has got a long, raking stride. He doesn't quicken, he lengthens, and that's not what dirt horses do. Dirt horses have a high strike cadence. They hit the ground hard, they bend their knee, they've got a lot of knee curl, and their strides per second a lot greater than what he can achieve. He's got a massive stride. Here, his maximum length was 8.13 metres. Big, long, raking stride, and whether that will be suited to the dirt, who knows. One thing in his favour, going to Delmar, his pace. He can sustain pace, and if he can jump from the stalls and stay out of kickback and use that long stride, he may just get away with it on the dirt, but there has to be some reservations. For now, we should laud him as being a brilliant racehorse. Let's turn our attentions to Thursday at York. Yorkshire Oaks Day, of course. That's the race I'm very interested in having a look at. Here are the winners on Thursday afternoon. Celandine taking the opening contest diligently, winning the big sales race. Thunder Run made all to win. Content going under the Racing Post standard to win the 3:35, the Yorkshire Oaks. Scenic was impressive. Fred Walker in the 4:10. Angel Hunter and Alpha Klenik, who's just on a roll, winning the last contest. Let's have a look at the Race IQ time indexes. They'll give us a clue as to what happened on the Thursday. Time's not as good. The scores nowhere near as good as those that were achieved on the Tuesday, but we had some outstanding performances on the Tuesday. The average 5.75, and they were all there or thereabouts what you would expect from horses at York in the grades that they were running in. And you can see that the race we're going to have a look at is the fourth one there, Content, winning the Yorkshire Oaks. And her time, not spectacular, but she achieved the win in that very interesting style. So let's have a look at it. OK, we'll take them from the start. Content from stall number 3, You Got Me from 5, and Emily Upjohn from stall number 2. More of her anon. What happened as they came out of the stalls? Ryan Moore on the winner, Content, wanted to get her dropped in and settled, so he took a pull, and therefore 0 to 20 miles an hour, she was pretty slow. But that's because Ryan's reining her back. You see her head, look at it to one side. He's trying to grab hold of her. 7 fastest, 3.12 seconds up to 20 miles an hour. Sea Theme was quickest, there down towards the rail in the blue and yellow colours, 2.48 seconds to 20 miles an hour. But let's focus on Content for the time being. Look at Ryan fighting with her in the early part of the race. She's got her head to one side. She's doing way too much. She's far too keen. And because they haven't concertinaed together, he's not really getting much proper cover. She's still a bit keen down against the rail. They're all coming together a little bit now at this point, but whoa, she still wants to do too much. She wears a cross noseband. She's got quite a severe bit on as well. She's been keen before. This is as keen as I've ever seen her, though. Look at Ryan's hands, way up off the horse's withers, trying to get her to relax. And he's not helped by the first 3 furlongs being pretty sedate. They were quite steady in the early part of the contest. And therefore, she just wouldn't drop the bridle. She really wanted to just get on with it. But they then picked up the pace a little bit when it came to the 4th furlong, and that's just helped her a little bit. You can see she's still doing a bit too much, but as this pace increases, she just settles a little bit better. The 4th furlong, they're going 12.21. That's after a 12.62 and a 12.81. So just beginning to pick the pace up. They've all established a position, perhaps where they want to be or where they've just ended up. And now the pace is just quickening up. And after that 12.71, they went even quicker. They went 12.09 through the next furlong. And that's just enabling her to settle a little bit better there in 5th place. She's dropped it now. She's not fighting Ryan because they're going a quicker gallop. Not going overly quick, but just quick enough for her to drop the bridle and relax. And once again, the pace picks up in the home straight, rather like it did in the Juddmonte International. They get racing quite a long way out. And she stays on really strongly in the closing stages to most remarkably win this, given how much petrol she used up in the early part of the race. If you look at her individual sectionals through the latter part of the race, she's just kept going better than all of her rivals. She hasn't actually quickened wildly. She's not shown a great turn of foot. She's just come home evenly through the closing stages, and it means that she's recorded a finishing speed percentage of 103.15. Nothing flash. She's not really quickened up in fine style. She's just kept going better than the rest. You can see that FSP as against par, a par of 104.84, what you could expect. So she's just under that. She's literally just kept galloping, but she's kept galloping on the right part of the track, the favoured part of the track, where all the sprinters had been winning through the week, where you needed to be. And Ryan knew that, and sensibly he stuck to that far side, whereas Emily Upjohn came across towards the stand side, along with the runner-up, You Got To Me, and then eventually they wandered back, but it was too late thereafter to reel in Content, who did remarkably well to win this. Her final time, 2 minutes 28.75. She's 0.39 above the Race IQ par time for a race of this standard at York over this trip. And that's because the first few furlongs were quite steady, and then they came home in par sectionals thereafter. There was no horse that was able to quicken up. And with that in mind, Emily Upjohn, hood off on this occasion, ridden more prominently this time, found herself probably in front too soon. She's a filly who wants to be ridden chilly and get there and utilise her speed and her turn of foot to win races, like she did when she won the Coronation last year. But here, pace collapsed around her. She found herself in front a bit too soon. She'd done maybe too much early on and couldn't quicken. And Content outstayed her. Content kept going. That's the only way we can think about Content's performance here, because she pulled so hard early on. The only way she was going to win was just to be able to keep going. She was never going to find loads in the closing stages, but she just kept going better than all of her rivals. 36.34 her final 3 furlongs, 36.61 the runner-up. So she's stronger through the final 3 furlongs by just keeping rolling. And she certainly is quite a strong stayer at 1.5 miles. There's all the Race IQ data. You can see those first 3 furlongs rated as being, well, one of them even, 2 of them rated as being slow. They then pick the pace up where those sectionals go green, and that is where Content finally decided to settle and drop her head. And then look how she's coming home in par through the rest of those furlongs, bar the last furlong where they're all getting tired. So it was a race that was all about staying, and remarkably Content was able to win, which suggested on the day she was much better than her rivals, but also that her jockey had worked out exactly where you wanted to be on the track. OK, we're moving on to Friday now, and some interesting performances. Shadow Dance taking the opener. Vauban back to form. Melbourne Cup bound now. He won the 225 contest in good style, the Lonsdale Cup. Cool Hoof Luke won the 3 o'clock, the Jim Crack for the Andrew Balding team. Bradsell took the Nunthorpe. Canoodle, another winner, Fred Walker. Team guy still going well. Angelo Buonarroti won the 4:45, and Treasure Time took the 5:20 times. Not quite as good as they were on day one, slightly better than they were on the second day. Look at the Vauban time, that's very good indeed, wasn't it? He cruised through that race, he quickened to the front, and then he nearly got caught. He was nearly didn't quite see out the 2 miles, but he did well enough to win. Melbourne Cup bound now. We're going to have a look at the Nunthorpe. That was just perhaps a slightly slower time than you might have expected on quick ground, and Bradsell was the winner from stall 3. A second home was Believing from 13. What a performance that is. And Starlust from 7, back in 3rd place. Perfect setup for Bradsell, who was well found in the market, went off second favourite, jumped really quickly over on the far side along with Pontos. Bradsell was second fastest to 20 miles an hour, 2.39 seconds. Believing, 8th fastest, down towards the stand side, and right next to Big Ev's stand side with the sheepskin noseband, 2.75 seconds for Believing. Now, the main point to make about this race is that Bradsell was in absolutely the right spot here, tracking the pace set by the lightningly quick Pontos, who ran better, reunited with Mikel Barcelona on this particular occasion. He disappointed when he ran at Goodwood. Over on the far side, sat in 3rd in that group, far side, is Starlust, who finishes 3rd overall. So it's an advantage to be over that side. Look at Believing towards the stand side. She's about 2nd last, but she runs on really well. It's a tremendous performance. Bradsell, 3rd furlong, 10.4 seconds having done a 10.28 through the second furlong. Very quick in the early part of the race, flashing brazen speed early on and then getting tired through the final furlong. In fact, it was a slow final furlong from Bradsell of 12.28 as Believing comes home quicker with a 12.03, but couldn't quite get there. And given that Believing was posted on perhaps what was the less favourable side of the track, the two distinct groups there, with Believing in the left-hand group, Bradsell in the right. And although Bradsell was on the best part of the track and got a lovely tow from Pontos, it was early speed that won the Nunthorpe. It's often the case. Living the Dream last year was exactly the same, with real good gate speed and fast through the first two furlongs. And a second furlong of 10.28 and third of 10.4 established a lead for Bradsell. And they were unable to reel that horse in the closing stages, although Believing, you can see from the data, came home faster than Bradsell through the final couple of furlongs. 22.88 for Believing, 23.29 for Bradsell, but Bradsell had enough of an advantage to hold on and win the Nunthorpe. That concludes our look at York. Let's go to the Curragh on Saturday now. We're going to have a look at a really good two-year-old performance. Make a note of Officer, who won the opening contest on debut. Son of Jabari out of that really good mare Hydrangea, winning the first on debut. Really nice horse going forward. Bedtime Story, of course, she's a really lovely two-year-old filly. But we're going to have a look at Henri Matisse, who won the Futurity at 3.30 over 7 furlongs. I think he's a really good two-year-old. Not quite up there with the Lion in Winter, who we looked at a little bit earlier on, but definitely a horse to follow going forward. It might be the National Stakes for him. There he is, highlighted. He beats Hot as Hell into second and Score Champ back in third spot. How was this race run? What did he actually achieve? Well, we saw a tremendous turn of foot from him. The first 4 furlongs were not particularly fast. They went along at quite a steady gallop. Rock of Cashel, pacemaker for Henri Matisse, taking them along, but not going particularly quick. 14.91, 11.85, 11.88, 11.93 took them through the first half mile. For a 7 furlong two-year-old contest of this standard, those were steady enough fractions early on. But Henri Matisse, although he's a little way off the pace at this stage in third spot, shows a really good turn of foot to win this. He quickens up through the 5th furlong, 11.14, and then his 6th furlong is the most impressive in the race, the fastest in the race of 10.68. It's rated as fast as against sectionals, and this was a blinding turn of foot. He's got quite a high cadence. His strides per second, the greatest in the field, and that enables him to quicken up in fine style in the closing stages. 11.14, that 10.68, and 11.37 for the final furlong. That rated as fast as well. Meant that his finishing speed percentage was well over 100, 108.91, and you'd expect something like 102.47 in a race of this nature at the Curragh. So he has quickened up really well. It's a blinding turn of foot that this horse has got, and he'll be seen to good effect in better company. His overall time, 124.11, 1.9 under the Race IQ par. It was a tremendous time. Look at that jink to the left, still green, still doesn't know what's required. Ryan kept him together and kept him going forward. And it's a race of 2 halves. Those first 4 furlongs, not that quick, and then the whole field quickened up, but nothing could quicken as well as Henri Matisse, that penultimate furlong, 10.69 seconds. Really impressive, and he did it amidst inexperience and being really green. There's more to come from him. One of several nice two-year-olds we saw last week from the Aidan O'Brien yard. Indeed, a yard that dominated the York meeting, and in particular dominated with a horse that really must have turned the doubters into believers, City of Troy.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.